No sound. That's not good. Sorry about that. This is Cindy and,
And Michael.
and my dad
Hello.
from Part Time Permies. Sorry, I was rushing from the Justin Rhodes show, so that was my mistake. It should be cutting in here. I think we have a bit of a delay because I'm seeing everybody saying no sound now. Um, but for those of you guys who are joining us from Justin's show, welcome. For anybody who's here first time, awesome. I think there may be a few more joining from over there as they finish up, but they're still going right now. Um, we have, I'll go through a few things for those of you guys who are new. I'm just trying to see who's in the room. From Zero to Homestead. Yeah, I'm thinking you're new to our channel. Welcome. Incense Shop. Yeah. Noah's Ark we have is a regular. Curie is a regular. And Curie, we're going to answer your question today that you sent to us on Facebook.
Seven Sprouts is here pretty regularly.
Yeah. So I have a number of people in the room, and of course your mom's here. And of course my dad's here. But anyway, so for those of you guys who are new to our channel, we do a lot, basically anything to do with food. So from growing to foraging to we have chickens. Mike's the chef, so he's going to answer a cooking question today from Kiri. So glad. Okay, we have verification of the sound. That's good. So we'll be going over a number of things today. We do a little bit of a review of what we had going on this week, and we always do a foraged feature, which, by the way, I'll just throw out there because I do this every once in a while. You always want to make sure that you double check whenever you talk about foraged items. It's good to have someone in your location that you can verify those items with. So you make sure you get a positive ID. We did talk about this a little bit last time we were talking about mushrooms. There's probably, I can think of maybe 8 different mushrooms that we would be fairly positive in IDing and eating.
We're playing about eight varieties. 5 or 6 of those are really all 8 are almost completely distinguished from any other type, or there is it's quite obvious that things that even look slightly similar, and we feel comfortable.
And some of them are a lot more desirable than others. So a lot of them, there's no real lookalikes.
When you want to check,
but you want to check
your environment too.
Yeah.
You should know a little bit about the environment.
What they're growing on.
Is it close to roads, or is it on property that may have had lots of farm or industrial chemicals or spilled oil, driveways that are possible? So anytime, or it's sitting near poison ivy, or sometimes even
you don't want to pick mushrooms.
Even hemlock. Yeah. It can take up. Some mushrooms grow well in hemlock.
Yeah.
But some hemlock is pretty poisonous. You don't want to pick in those areas. So you do want to check your environment, and you want to check the condition of the mushrooms, that they aren't starting to heavily decay, that they have lots of pests or secondary infections of molds.
Yeah.
So assuming those things, then you can go into your mushrooms that you're comfortable picking.
Same with your plants. You want to make sure that you know what you're picking. You want to make sure it's grown in a clean environment. You want to make sure there's no poison ivy rubbing up against it. A lot of things along those lines. But we do kind of feature one item a week that we know how to identify, but it is hard to make sure that you have it correct based on pictures alone. So it's always good to have someone that you could touch base with locally. We found our foraging guide at our farmer's market. She works for a farm nearby. So yes.
Yeah, when I saw 2 years ago, when I saw hen of the woods or maitake mushrooms growing, I'm like, oh, that really looks like a maitake. I'm pretty sure that's a maitake, but it doesn't look like the small domesticated ones, which are a specific species or subset, grown under artificial conditions. They look different. I went to the farmer's market later, and I saw these monster ones, and that looked very sort of different. And I go, wow, those are maitake. Those are all hen in the woods. Look and they have different conformations, a little more coral pattern instead of little leaflet patterns.
Yeah.
And so now I'm really confident that for sure when I see that mushroom in the wild, I know that there's really little that
And
looks like it.
we have a space where it usually comes back every year, but it hasn't come back yet this year, and it was too dry
We
last
heard
year.
they're just starting. I saw some
That
very
may
little
come out.
pieces this week
Yeah.
at the market, and I was told they the first sighting. So we're
Welcome,
okay.
welcome to the More You Grow. We are all about growing and foraging and cooking here. So, but yeah, so we have, and we did. I should go through um, some of our videos this week. If you haven't caught them, we did two this week. So just to kind of touch on them briefly, if you guys are interested in checking them out, we did have a chicken who is sick who within about 24 hours lost his ability to walk. It was quite rapid. We're trying to figure that out. So we have a little story on it. We haven't been able to figure out exactly what it was. Someone did mention a vitamin deficiency. That could be, except for the
Our
fact,
chickens are pretty well fed and they're supplemented.
and they're foraged, so they get a lot of
Yeah,
nutrients.
yeah, it's
And
unlikely.
none of the other chickens have had that issue that it's grown up with. And you vitamin deficiency. We're actually um, I would expect that to happen earlier. These guys are a few months old now. I expect that to be a problem as they're growing rapidly when they're smaller. But, who knows? I mean, it could have been a lot of things. I have a theory that it may have eaten an amanita poisonous or neurotoxic mushroom.
Truckage, we're in Kalamazoo.
Yeah,
We're
we're west of
yep,
Kalamazoo. So we are very close to you. And welcome to the channel. I
yep.
don't think you've been here before, but welcome. Yes, we are west of
We're in
Kalamazoo.
Mattawan, so
Yeah,
we do most of our work in and around Kalamazoo.
yeah,
Cindy works in downtown Kalamazoo, so
yeah.
yeah. But
So
there are right now
it's
mushrooms.
going crazy.
It's been raining every 2 or 3 days. We've had a
Yep.
lot of heavy rain. It's getting quite wet again after weeks of being dry. There are probably 20 varieties of mushrooms up in the last week or two. Most of them are not edible, but
It's
it's
cool.
crazy. Mushrooms we've never seen before. One,
Yeah.
we maybe weren't looking as close, but there is more variety because usually there's a few you get a
Yeah.
heavy time in the spring and a heavy time in the fall where it's moderate temperatures, not too hot, not too cold, and you get
And
the
wet.
heavy rains.
Yeah.
Typically, that's like second or third week in October is kind of prime time. But you got to watch again the temperature
Yeah.
water scenario. Well, I think we're kind of in a
I know
prime
where you're at,
time.
Truckett.
Yeah, I know people that go out to Asylum Lake
Yeah.
and forage out
Yeah.
and around that area
That's a cool place.
a lot.
Well, it's nice and wet year round there, so that's
Yeah.
helpful. Yeah. So
Only challenge there is there's enough people that know about it and are out that sometimes it's a little overrun, but it's a
yeah.
big enough area that it's a good. That's definitely a known forage
Yeah.
area. Yeah.
Excuse me. Oh, sorry. Allergies are going nuts too.
We actually should go to Korea and
Go get more
and
reishi.
well, no, just in general because right now it's not hunting season, which is nice because when you hit that late fall mushroom forage,
Yeah.
you're also frequently approaching hunting. Or November when you're getting into bow season, it's on the edge. Mushrooms are kind of slowing,
Yeah.
but you do have to watch out for hunters because you're creeping around and they're creeping around and
Yeah.
looking for different things, and so.
Korea is our
So
keyword.
this is a good yeah. Korea is a secret location that we were privileged to go forage with a friend.
Yeah.
So
With
we
our
don't
guide.
yeah. So we
Yeah.
don't talk about where that is because that's sort of one of
That's
her
her.
honey holes. So
Yeah. So
it's a good ways away. It's over an hour away. So.
yeah, no, but it's a good spot
Yeah.
for a number of things. But and we found Rishi not that far from here too, so
Yeah.
there's definitely some of that around. But we did do one other video. We'll get back to mushrooms in a little bit. We did a collaboration video that was with Rose at Wholesome Roots 10-minute garden challenge. She is challenging everyone to get out in the garden 10 minutes a day through the month of September. I've already failed. Today we were celebrating my mom's birthday, so I didn't get out there. I was hoping to get out there before we left for dinner, but didn't quite get there because I was prepping for this before all that too. So we'll get back to it tomorrow. But that 10-minute garden challenge, you guys, that can be done by anybody and shared to any social media platform.
And if you don't have a garden, go ransack your neighbor's garden
Yeah,
for 10 minutes.
or start something in pots that you're going to grow inside. You can you can start your greens the whole point is to get out into the garden, even in September. Start your cold hardy plants. We grow things and have low tunnels that we keep harvesting through the winter.
So we have Mandy Sims joining for a first time, and I don't
Awesome.
think 50 Chickens in a Hen House. I don't think we've seen that
I've
before.
seen them
Yeah,
on
have you?
other channels. I
Okay.
think they're joining maybe our live show.
From
Yep.
watching from Justin. Yeah.
And Wholesome Roots as well. And they started a chicken collaboration, which we said that our chicken video should be a part of, because we just released that yesterday. So they have the collaboration on chickens too. So anybody doing videos can do that one. And then Rose's, and should check out their page too, for that matter, their YouTube channel. And then Rose's collaboration with the 10-minute garden challenge. You can post pictures on Instagram showing what you did. You can post things on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, whatever you want. But it's a goal to get, growing, just doing something little, 10 minutes a day to just keep things going.
And if you're new here, if you'd let us know kind of what state you're from or what area, because we're from Southwest Michigan. So that it kind of affects a lot of what we're talking about. So that's it's kind of nice, so we can figure out what's going on. If it's not the same, you might know why then.
Yeah, I mean, because we do a lot. Like I said, we feature foraged item every time. Hi, Kim. Welcome. Johnson. Yeah. So we do feature one foraged item every weekend. We do have it on our webpage as well. But knowing what states everyone is from, or general regions, or countries for that matter, can just help us know if you're ahead of us or a little behind us, or kind of what climate you're in, or if you do get a little overlap with what we're talking about.
Yeah, we got big storms in last night. We've got more coming. They knocked out TV.
Darn, during the football game.
Yep.
And being in Michigan, that was important.
We went to we don't have cable right now because we just don't watch TV, so we decided to go over to neighborhood sports bar, crappy restaurant, and get some just bar food and watch the game. And they got knocked out because they're on DirecTV. I'm like, come on, what bar's on DirecTV? But
we're kind of out of the big town though, so a lot of people
there are more limitations.
Yeah, we really only had, when we had TV, we had DirecTV. It was their only option, really.
Well, they're a little more in the village, but I don't know what they're. They may not have another option, but it's a bad choice if you're running a bar to have DirecTV with weather.
So we have Central North Carolina, we have South Central Georgia, Oklahoma, a lot of Southerners, North Georgia. Hi, Sandra. We're kind of going through where everybody is watching from.
There we go, some northern Saskatchewan.
Yep. And hi, Teresa. She's another regular of ours. Saskatchewan. So you're probably a little bit behind us in seasons. Okay, and
Willow Creek.
Is that
Iowa? Iowa, I'm guessing.
I'm guessing that's a typo on Iowa. But perfect. So okay, so we got eastern half of
Pittsburgh. So my family lived in and around the Atlanta area for about 15 years, so I spent a few summers there. So I am familiar with some of the climate and growing conditions in and around Georgia.
You did a lot of, landscaping there. So.
I worked for a professional landscaping company in college, so it was mostly, urban.
Not anything
urban cutting and mowing and trimming.
And not anything what we're doing.
We lived in Pittsburgh for 2 years, so we know a little bit about Pittsburgh. That's my family.
Noah's Ark is southeast Michigan, of course. Pat's upstate New York, awesome.
And we lived in
outside of New York City.
Westchester, outside of for 12 years.
Yeah, which the New York City people consider upstate, but it's not.
And I lived up in the Poughkeepsie Hyde Park area for 2 years.
You did live upstate.
So that was a little further upstate.
And Idaho, we have someone from the west here. Hello, Willow Creek Homestead, welcome. Ohio, so neighbor. So we have a lot of people in here today. Awesome. And actually the feature today that we're going to be going over is one that is found in the eastern half of the United States. So and probably Canada too for that matter, eastern half of North America. So most of you guys
growing conditions don't change when they hit the geographic border to Canada.
No.
It just keeps going.
No.
So you can see, I think we talked about it before, as you go up in Michigan, when you get about 2/3 of the way up the Lower Peninsula, you can see a dramatic change in the trees, and because it's a much colder
climate,
summer and winter, so all of a sudden you go to mostly pines into birch, and you start losing a lot of the oaks and maples. There are some, so you see that big change happen
Yeah.
before you hit the northern part of Michigan. That great mushrooming up
Yeah.
there.
Willow Creek, welcome. I'm sorry I can't stay longer, but maybe next time. Thanks for joining us. But yeah, so what is our forage food feature this week? I didn't actually get the webpage updated until today. I usually try to do that on Fridays. And so what you can do in the description down below, there is a link to my webpage, which has the blog, which will describe, each thing that we do each week, which we basically are talking about here. And this week, if you take a look at it, we are talking about,
I haven't put the picture up yet.
I will put the picture up. We're talking about Old Man of the Woods. There are a whole lot of what they call bolete mushrooms in Michigan. Some are edible, some taste bitter from what I've read, and you don't want to eat them, and some are toxic. And it's sometimes
New
hard to,
York has most of the same
yeah.
boletes, especially as you move upstate. But
And I think this goes north and south of us, maybe slightly different seasons, but this one grows all summer and or to late summer and into the fall quite a bit. So it has a wide uh, range of timing for it. It doesn't need to be a wet time, but
it's a floccopus.
yes, it is. I love the scientific name. Let's see if I can say it. Strobilomyces. Myces is for the fungus, which is, and Floccopus is the second part of it. It's kind of a funny name. But there's very few mushrooms in the Strobilomyces family. And they are really all very similar and all just as edible. Some of them, I believe, are basically just indistinguishable. They're all edible. So this is common name is Old Man of the Woods. You could see in the picture it does have a very unique look to it. It is a bolete, so basically it has this cap on top. Stem is kind of like almost woolly on top. It's got these scales that
Shaggy,
are
yeah, scaling is
definitely
shaggy.
shaggy on it. And then underneath, it's got your bolete pores, which are very white to grayish in color. And if you bruise it, it turns very slowly turns red and then turns black.
Purple.
Purple to black. In fact, we still have it in the fridge out there.
Yeah.
And the basically it has this shaggy rim around the cap as well. And then the stem has those scales that are very, very soft and shaggy as well. Um, so yeah, this mushroom is found basically over quite a large range in the eastern half of North America. As we said, tends to grow under oaks primarily, but deciduous trees for the most part, occasionally pines. But most people will find them under oak trees. They can be found. They're basically growing on the ground. They don't grow off the tree themselves. They are grown off on the ground itself. It is dark, so it's very easy to miss it in all the leaf litter on the ground. Um, basically, I'm trying to think if I missed anything. That size can vary a little bit. This one I would say is a little bit on the smaller to medium
Did you
end.
put the link into your website?
I did put the link to the website. It's in the description
You didn't
below
put
if
it in
you
the
can't
chat?
follow.
No.
In the chat, I could do that. Actually, let
So
me
then
go
people
back.
got to see what you're looking at.
Well, yeah. Uh, I do have it in the description below though. But yeah, so here I'll put the link in the chat as he suggested.
Also, there's a whole bunch of new people, which is great. It's
Yeah.
holiday weekend, changes things up, and I know some people came over from hanging out with Justin Rhodes, which we appreciate. So
Yeah.
make sure you happy to have it. You like us, but also go find some of the other people in our chat and
Yeah.
check out their channels and like them.
There's a number of channels hanging
You'll
out.
probably discover some really good people and
Good channels.
fun stuff that you haven't seen before.
Yep. So yeah, so I did just put the link to this website as well, so you can take a look at it. You can cook this mushroom. It is very edible. It's not the most flavorful of mushrooms, not very unique. It takes on a lot of the flavor of what you're cooking.
We picked one. I saw one other. We picked this
Thursday, I think it
last
was.
Thursday. We have
Yeah.
not eaten it. We
Yeah.
took a while to verify what it was,
Yeah.
and we're certain it is what it is.
Because there's no lookalikes to
It's
this one.
very just it's very unique and distinguishable.
Yeah.
Good fresh specimen. So we could eat this one, although it's been sitting. We may go out and take a quick look tomorrow.
Yeah. I want to do that. Yeah.
For some mushrooms around the area. Don't have a lot of time, but
Do a quick
we
look.
might try cooking and see what it's like because
Yeah.
very mixed opinions. A lot of it's definitely edible, but a lot of people are like, it's boring, it's tough.
Yeah.
I don't like it, and then other people say that it's pretty good.
Yeah. I was talking to Rose at Wholesome Roots. She does a lot of foraging as well. She likes to eat this one, and pretty much she did say it basically you have to have a dish that has this flavor, so it'll take on the flavor. But the texture is good. It's meaty. The stalk is tougher, so not everyone will eat the stalk, but the actual cap is supposed to be very meaty. We haven't tried it yet, but I would have no problem trying this one because there's no, like I said, there's no poisonous lookalikes. There's a couple species, varieties in this species.
Some of that more
Yeah.
cracky white and gray poking through. This one was pretty gray, black
Yeah.
across the top.
So the underside, under the scales, is much lighter. So as the scales separate, you can see a lot more of the lighter color underneath.
As it grows and spreads.
But it's such a wool. I've never seen a mushroom this woolly. Basically, it's really soft and fuzzy. Now dirt can get into that woolliness, so you got to brush it off as well. But you could basically use it like you use any other mushrooms in any dish. I do have some resources I list at the bottom where I find where we found the information on this mushroom so that we can make a positive identification. This is one, like I said, I would only eat something that I am 100% sure what it is. If I am 99% sure, we would go verify it with our foraging friend first.
So I'll bring, if we think it may be something that we've identified and we're mostly interested in edible mushrooms and edible forage, we will bag it up. We'll bring it to her when we see her because we usually see her once or twice a week, and we'll say, "Hey, what do you think this is?"
Yeah.
And then she'd be like, "Well, it looks like a king bolete. Yeah, everything looks good, but I wouldn't eat it because I don't, because she, But she gives a pretty. She goes, "No, it's definitely edible. We had a king bolete last week. It was not. It was falling apart and getting secondary mold, so we wouldn't be able to eat it. It was awesome. It was like 3 or 4 inch head on it. It would have been a heck of a specimen, but we were a couple days late."
Yeah, so it was already, I mean,
that was the first king boletes we've seen, and there was probably 10 in that area. That would have been a nice, but we understand they don't change a lot in their areas. They respore obviously in the same area, so we do now know mid to late summer where to keep an eye out when we get a lot of rain.
Yep. So that is our feature of the week, called Old Man of the Woods. I did actually do, I don't know if I put, I did put the picture here. I did actually do a spore print as well, which is another way to identify mushrooms. You basically cut the cap off the stalk and set it on a paper for about 2 to 6 hours. I set it on a paper overnight, and you get the spores dropping off out of the pores or out of the gills, depending on the type of mushroom. And you get this print, and they have specific colors for specific species. And this species is always brown to black in the color of the spores. So you can see the spore pattern on that picture. So that is another good thing to learn how to do if you want to start exploring mushrooms. We do tend to collect mushrooms to look up when we go out if we see interesting ones. The one thing I would give a warning on when you do that is either wear gloves as you're picking up mushrooms that you don't know, or just make sure that you wash your hands when you get back, because some mushrooms, if you get some of the spores on, if they're toxic, you can get yourself sick if you've like eaten something and you had it on your hands. So you do want to be careful with that. But it is kind of fun to just pick them and try to identify them. And there are a couple books. One of them's a nice tiny book for those of you guys in the upper Midwest. I'll grab it here. It's listed on the web page, and there is a link down below here that goes to a site that lists a bunch of our foraging resources that I use. So this mushrooms of the upper Midwest is a nice pocket-sized one that has a lot of easy to identify mushrooms, and then it gets into more detail later on. It's an easy one to take with you. So now that is, of course, for the upper
And yeah,
Midwest.
and Truck had said use dog poo bags. Yeah,
Yep.
anybody I've ever forged with, and I forged a little bit with some really good professionals. I want to say it was Poughkeepsie Community College or Dutchess Community College, has some amazing, like, nationally renowned people, and they would go out when I was in culinary school
Yeah.
with us twice a year. We always bring bags, so anything that you don't know what it is, you bag it in a Ziploc bag
Something where
or a
it's not
paper
gonna.
bag,
Yeah.
so and you throw it in your general bag so that otherwise you potentially contaminate anything that you do positively identify as an edible,
Yeah.
and then you don't really you're not sure to eat it, especially if you had a highly. We found an extremely toxic one last
Yeah.
week. We found a Angel of Death.
Yes.
Sounds really tasty.
Death Angel. Yes.
So something like that, if we had that in our bag, I
That
don't
would
think
have
we
not
would
have been good.
want to eat anything. And again, we
Yeah.
don't tend to eat most mushrooms. We tend to look for them.
And
Maybe we
identify
pick
them.
one of each. If I find morels or I find chanterelles or something, of course we're going to pick a modest number of them,
Yeah.
and we're going to take them back and eat them. But
Um.
chanterelles just popped in our area last week.
Yeah.
Cinnabars have been up for a week or two, but they're hard to find. Yellow morels popped. I have some awesome ones that I bought.
Yeah. I haven't seen them yet in our
We haven't found
property.
any. Hen of the Woods just took off. Chicken mushrooms have been going off and on a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
but I hear they're starting to take off. Again, we've gotten really wet.
And
So
another thing about carrying these mushrooms around, put the ones you don't know into plastic bags that you could seal up, so that you don't, if they're toxic, they don't get on the ones that you know are edible.
or
But
keep 2 bags.
for the edible ones, put them in a mesh bag so that as you walk around, if their spores drop out, you can hopefully help propagate them.
Yeah, let them
So
spore all over the place.
yeah, exactly. So the edible ones you do want in mesh bags, but the ones you're not sure about, I'd put them in a bag where it's not going to contaminate anything else.
It's funny. Michigan is known as one of the better morel states, although
Yeah.
there's a number of very good. And so people go nuts for morels. We had a pretty good morel year this year, although our general property hasn't had a great morel year yet.
No.
But they
We
were
get 1 or 2 a year on
yeah.
property.
But a lot of people start with morels and give up and never really go out after that. And we listed off about 8 items today that we think most people, there's 5 to 8 items that you can learn and be very confident. Chanterelles look like chanterelles, at least the yellow
Yeah.
ones. Morels look like morels. Hen of the Woods, which are pretty.
And lobster's pretty easy.
Lobster, chicken, giant puffball. I think
Reishi.
Rishi. We're comfortable now with this King Bolete.
Yeah. And then hi Helix. Someone came to join us. This is our cat, by the way. We have a dog in somewhere behind
we
us.
had some other really good boletes that were kind of reddish capped and
I had a picture
yellow
of-
underneath that we bought at the market from
Yeah.
a forager.
Oh yeah.
Who and those were very good, but I would not pick those because I'm not confident in picking those.
Yeah, and there's too many lookalikes. For
Honey
those.
mushroom, same thing. Pretty identifiable, but there are lookalikes, and I'm not comfortable picking honey mushrooms.
Yeah.
Corn smut, we'd be comfortable picking that.
That's true. That's another one. And we'd be comfortable eating that.
Yeah.
So
that's huelacoche and Spanish and Mexican cuisine. So that
yeah.
So we have a good 8 to 10 items at this point that, coming across them under the right circumstances, we would positively identify them, and I think we would choose to eat them.
Yep.
So it grows pretty fast. You learn by working with people, and everybody, even foragers that know hundreds of species, although there aren't hundreds you can eat. There's probably 20 or 30
of the
ish
mushrooms
that are pretty, and then there's things that are just so unidentifiable or so uncertain nobody wants to risk it. But they all kind of try and learn 5 or 10 mushrooms a year, and they keep learning from other people. Yeah, corn smut's the thing that gets sprayed in the fields where the corn explodes with a fungal infection that blows up white and gray.
It basically infects the corn kernels, and the corn kernels expand and turn kind of grayish black.
Mm-hmm.
And then when it spores, the kernel explodes and it goes all over the field.
Powdery black. Yep.
And basically, when it's still encapsulated and not powdery, and very black in the corn kernel before it explodes.
So it should be 2 to 3 to 6 or 7 times the size of a regular corn
Yeah.
kernel. They'll be popping out of the top. So those are typically thrown and sprayed because it's a big negative and it can infect your feed corn and other things.
The Mexicans love it.
Yep, and South America and other places, it's known. So it's earthy and mild and mushroomy, but it's not a strong flavor. So if you like the general flavor of a regular white mushroom or a
Yeah.
portobello, you probably like this. So you pick those in good condition that aren't sporing or have secondary molds and things, and then you saute them either with some butter or you
You
make
could grill
queso
them.
or yeah, you
Yeah.
could, or you make quesadillas with it. So you use
Yeah.
a soft, mild, salty cheese. Um, like a queso fresco or queso Oaxaca. Really, a queso Oaxaca is the standard. I like to use Munster. That's easy to get and similar. So I learned that from a Mexican cook friend that we cooked together. Like, goes,
Yeah.
oh, Munster, just use Munster. It's as good as anything. The loaf style, not
Yeah.
the German but get the loaf style one, and then you make quesadillas with it.
Yep.
And so that's pretty good.
And yes, so what we're saying, I think from Zero to Homestead had mentioned they use a basket to spore things when they walk around.
Yep, baskets
Seven
or
Sprouts was
baskets or mesh bags.
tapping them to help them
Hmm.
spore out. Yeah, for any of those edible ones, absolutely.
Especially things like morels or chanterelle, things that are highly desirable.
That are
You,
more
you
rare.
you clip them on the bottom with a scissors or a knife to try and keep some of it
The
in
mycelium in the ground.
in the ground, and then but I definitely a little flick
Yeah.
before you put it in the bag never hurts because now you're in an area that under the right conditions will
No, it
grow.
grows. Yeah.
Once you put it in a bag, you're walking around and you're hoping that it's going to find new areas where the conditions will be right, or or in different years. So it's a good method, and of course, if there's 10 there, you should probably pick 8. Like most things,
Yeah.
don't pick
Leave
more than
some.
8. Leave a few to go through their full cycle because if they're not mature enough, they're not going to
They're
be
not
sporing.
sporing. Yeah.
So if you don't want them all to disappear, make sure you leave a few.
Yeah.
And then mark your spot and come back and check it next
And
year.
make sure when you pick it, you definitely leave part of it in the ground because most of that mushroom is actually underground with the mycelium spreading underground. So you want to make sure that you don't pull a whole chunk out of the ground because you're going to be taking more more that can come up later.
And for Teresa, yeah, I mean, mushrooms are very difficult. Some people really grasp onto them,
Yeah.
and they get they're hard to find. Although once you find them, sometimes they're easier to find because
Oysters I'd be
your
comfortable
your brain kind of has to get to know them. I could tell you the forest smells like mushrooms right now. It is so wet you could smell not just rotting. It's not really rotting. You can smell the
earthy
mushrooms and the earth,
mushrooms.
which is crazy. But if you think you found something because it's a year before they come back, frequently they're in seasonal under different conditions. It's really easy to be confused. Or I saw this in a book and I'm trying to remember that.
Yeah.
And so the idea, it's really hard to distinguish. And you have in your hand, like, I'm pretty sure this is it. I'm pretty sure it's not. And you really don't know. So that's why you do it with foraging partners and you check the surroundings and you check the conditions. And just because it doesn't look like the picture, there are different forms and variants and subspecies and different times in its development where they look very different. So
like most mushrooms will start as like just a little bump on the ground and look like almost like a little egg, which sometimes they call them little eggs.
and those are never distinguishable, so you never want to pick them and eat them.
And then the problem is the little puff balls look just like the little eggs of poisonous mushrooms. But as they grow, they start growing their stalk and they pull away from the bottom part and start growing their caps. So they have all these different stages where they look a little different.
So don't depend on books. You really have to link up with people you can bring mushrooms to, and they like to know the environment. So you always want to record what was around it. What trees was it growing on? What trees was it growing in and under and around? Between that, the spore print, the confirmation of what it looks like in the current condition. Sometimes they like to see the root or the stem. But you need you need 2 or 3 positive identifiers that are indistinguishable from anything else. And to be sure that they're all positive, it really takes somebody who's pretty experienced. It's been foraging for years, and we haven't. That's why we keep to the few that we have learned over the years and feel really comfortable about.
There's another Michiganian in the house, Lois Ann.
Yep.
So yeah, so that is basically where we're at. This is one we just learned about, but like I said, we're Will we take this one to Nobby to verify it? I don't know if she eats this one
I don't know
actually.
if she does. She's never mentioned it. I'm guessing she avoids it or does. There's plenty of things she doesn't know.
I did have Rose at Wholesome Roots verify
Yeah.
it online.
And we both read the description
Yeah,
independently. I read it, I said it's 100%.
yeah.
Cindy's like, yeah, I don't know, maybe. And then
And
she
then I
looked,
look it up. I'm like, no, it
and
is.
we were looking at the book. I'm like, no,
It's
this
the
is,
only thing that looks like it.
yeah. So
Yeah,
that's why we feel comfortable on this one. And then
yeah,
we had secondary verification from these pictures from Rose,
yeah.
who's a pretty experienced forager.
Oh yeah, and especially the boletes. She
Yeah.
forages a lot of
And
types of
she's in
boletes.
Georgia. So
Yeah. Um. So anyway, and she loves eating these too. So and Rose didn't get a chance to join us. I'm guessing she puts her kids to bed
yeah,
at about this time. But she
sometimes
is,
she stops in.
yeah, she does stop in. So that is she's a good one to check out. She's doing a feature every week that she can as well. So she usually does a video on Fridays where she features something forward. So it is something good to check out. She's at Wholesome Roots. So check her out as
So what
well.
else do we have other than the mushroom?
Other than the mushrooms, we basically just have your question from Curie. Curie sent us a question
Curious,
about a
yeah, she sent a
recipe.
Facebook question of a barbecue sauce recipe she'd canned a couple years ago
Yeah.
and was revisiting and not real happy with it. Said it was boring, just didn't like it.
And I'm going to try. You could chat about it, but I'm going to see
If you
if
can pull
I
it
can
up.
pull it up.
So
So
basically, it's a fairly kind of, I would say it's an old school style barbecue. It was called with sombrero barbecue sauce, which really doesn't mean anything. Somebody just put a name on it. It has carrots, onions, I think celery, and tomatoes in large proportions, all cooked down. And then it has some chili powder, or chili powder, paprika, a little bit of hot sauce, just a small amount. I think a little bit of sugar, a little vinegar. Pretty classic sauce. I'm waiting for Cindy to pull it up.
yeah,
So she says just and I agree with her. I read that recipe. I just saw it tonight. I read that recipe and I go, that looks boring. So an old style recipe beginning off of carrots, onion, celery, and tomato is a sort of a French derived mirepoix plus tomato. And that cooks down and that forms your base or your pulp and the bulk of it. And then everything else I would consider seasoning. Seasoning and flavoring and spicing. So that cooks down. Um, so I asked her what's the problem with it? Is it boring? Is it bland? Is it bitter? Is there something in the spices you don't like? What's the deal with it? And she says it's just kind of boring. So I think that mirepoix cooked down is very vegetal. It's savory but vegetal, but I also think it's kind of it can get strong and bitter if there's too much cooked down. It's got the tomatoes. You never know what your tomato quality is. If they're sweet or very sweet, or if they're just moderately tomatoey, or they're quite acidic. Um, French tomato sauce, by the way, if you make classic French tomato sauce, what they call tomate, uses a little bit of roux for thickening, carrots, onion, celery in modest proportion, a lot of tomatoes, and then of course herbs. It's all cooked down and pureed. So it's a little different than your Italian tomato sauce, and almost nobody makes French tomato sauce. Um, so I actually almost see it starting out like that. What I would do to fix it, there's a lot of ways. So in comparison to a modern day barbecue sauce, moving you out of a vegetable soup puree into a barbecue sauce, we tend to have very, very robust tomato sauce or barbecue sauces right now. But the biggest component in a modern barbecue sauce is sugar. Huge amount. Think about all the sweet and sticky and smoky, and Sweet Baby Ray's is a classic commercial one that's very well liked. It's crazy sweet. Huge amounts, and I don't care how you get the sweet in when you go through a lot of the different barbecue sauces. Could be white sugar, brown sugar, molasses, maple, honey, caro syrup. Go down the list of how many things that you can use to make things sweet. Palm sugar, even date sugar, things like that. So, um, huge amounts of sugar in modern barbecue sauces. Acidity is very important, so vinegar or citrus or fruits. So tomatoes provide some of that. Typically red wine vinegar, cider vinegar, white wine vinegar, those type of things. The recipe's coming up here. It is probably going to be on its side,
Yeah.
but that's all right. So you can see what we're looking at.
I think I got it to work. So, and I apologize because it's going to show the sides of um, my Facebook page here too. But the recipe is here on its side. I don't think I could turn it. I wonder if it'll show up
I
like
think a
that.
lot of people
Yeah.
can pop it up too.
Yeah. So yeah.
So it's got brown sugar, it's got a little garlic, it's got a little mustard, a little paprika, a little hot sauce, white vinegar, black peppercorn, and some jalapenos, of course.
So
Uh,
how would you tweak this? Is the
so that's what
question.
we're talking
Yeah.
about. So
Yeah.
we just talked about sugar. Modern sauces have a lot of sugar in them. So one option is to begin by upping your sugar. This is 1.5 cups of sugar. It's making 20 cups. A modern recipe might have 5, 6, 8, 10 cups of some sweet item in it. Now it doesn't make it healthy, but I'll just tell you that's if you look at number one
Tasty.
ingredient in most of them, or they'll have 2 or 3 different sweetening items. The other thing is vinegar. This has 2.5 cups of vinegar, so it's got 10% vinegar. But make sure if whenever you add in a lot of sugar, you need a lot of vinegar to make things taste
Balance.
balanced and not taste too sweet. Um, so you can, if you add a bunch more sugar, you can balance that. Now the classic method of adding sugar and vinegar at the same time and background spice is tomato ketchup, which is why your easy sauces and barbecue sauces are based heavily on ketchup. So the easiest thing to do, and you're going to need a lot. So let's say you take 1 jar, whatever the size of the jar of barbecue sauce, you're going to need to almost, how can I make sweet baby rays with less sugar? That's tough. You could probably cut the sugar almost in half and it would be still taste sweet, but it wouldn't taste as sweet. Sugar's also used to make it thick and flowy. Sugar has physical properties to it, and so you can use it as a pastry chef for the physical effects as well as the sweetness. But yeah, it's hard to make up for all that sugar. So you can add, I mean, you could basically add better sugars, like more natural style sugars, but they're still sweet, they're still caloric, they're still not good if you're, diabetic or watching sugar content. Um, but ketchup, tomato ketchup is a massive amount of sugar, vinegar, and spices. So if you had 1 jar of this prepared, you could put almost a whole nother jar with your tomato ketchup, which means go to the store and buy the big number 10 can, the big industrial bottle from Costco, or we have GFS Garden Food Stores here, which is commercial stuff. Go buy the really big can of tomato ketchup, and you're almost going to be 1 for 1. Stir those together or reheat them. Adjust it with probably additional sugar on top of that, and then you're going to start adding in things like you can add celery. You can add onion powder and garlic powder. You can put quite a bit of onion powder in and get a lot of savory. Be careful on the garlic powder. And I like granulated because it doesn't get bitter and it doesn't clump. So I usually do at least 2 parts onion powder to 1 part garlic powder, but you could adjust with that. I think the paprika and the hot pepper sauce in there are good. Dry mustard is common. Using brown mustard or yellow mustard, a good portion because that's acidity and background flavor. And then you can play with spices. So some people have a little bit of clove or coriander. They have allspice. And so those things, allspice is heavy in ketchup and sometimes some clove. Tamarind is in many ketchups and in many barbecue sauces.
Yeah.
In fact, I think Open Pit has quite a bit of tamarind in it. Open Pit being the first big commercial sauce is kind of a weird off balance sauce. It's okay, but it's not a great sauce. But tamarind does make awesome barbecue sauces. And then you can play with things like a little bit of Worcestershire sauce, background flavors. And you can use soy or aminos or other things, but any of those get strong, so go easy. Put a tablespoon in, stir it around, or let it cook out, and then taste it before you put more in. So those are the things I would do. A little smoke flavor is fine, or smoke powders, things like that. If you want a little artificially smoky, and you're not going to put it up against hardwood smoke. But yeah, start with sugar, tomato ketchup, more vinegar, Cajun seasoning. If you want to make it more interesting, put in a Memphis spice or a Montreal seasoning or a Cajun seasoning, and stir that in. So what I'll do so I lived in Memphis for a while, so I'll do a dry rub ribs, where I make up sort of my own Cajun, and then I add in some mustard seed, a little bit of coriander, maybe a fennel seed, or just a variety of things. Sometimes I go through my pantry drawer. In fact, when I worked in a restaurant, a big country club, we had all kinds of crazy spices. I would grab all of our old spices that had been on the shelf for a year or more. And within proportion, without getting too crazy, I would dump as much of as I could into a big bowl and then take a tremendous amount of chili powder, smoked paprika, regular paprika, onions, powder, garlic powder, sometimes a little celery salt, and I would blend it all together into a rub to clean out all those old spices. And be careful, you can't put too much fennel seed or anise or things that are just way overpowering in there.
What, the licoricey things?
Yeah, the licoricey things. There's a whole
I
bunch
don't
of
like
things that get
licorice.
too strong.
Yeah.
But we would do that. So I would dust the ribs with a little cider vinegar to make them wet, sprinkle them with salt and pepper, and then I would dust them moderately to lightly with a rub like this or just a Cajun rub, and then I would smoke them. When I go to make my sauce, I take cider vinegar, either ketchup and or already prepared barbecue sauce because I want it runnier, I want it more acidic, and then I'll take some of that pre-made um, rub and I will bridge it, and I'll actually take some of that I didn't use, put it in the sauce, stir it around. I usually add in some mustard. There are probably 12 or 15 different distinct barbecue sauces in the United States. You can get whole books on it, going across regional barbecue sauces, which is a different thing, going from very vinegary or mustardy or onion to white, white barbecue sauce, which is mayonnaise based. So there's a lot of ways to do it, but using those spice blends, watching your sugar, usually way higher than you would expect, your vinegar, and your ketchup, bringing it back, back to home base with your spices, herbs, hot peppers. I like Texas Pete's and those type of buffalo wing sauces because they're very vinegary, they're not sweet, and they're pretty hot, and they make a real nice balance.
How
Uh,
much sugar do you think are in those?
no, there's very little in those.
Okay.
Yeah, Texas Pete because they're very vinegary,
Yeah.
which is why I like them because I'm not adding more sugar like a ketchup or commercial barbecue sauce, and they're wet, which and thin, so you can baste with part of that. A South Carolina mop is mostly vinegar, white vinegar or cider vinegar, usually a little bit of dry mustard or wet mustard, and a little bit of spice in there, maybe a little onion, and that's it. And you mop with that. It's not a thick barbecue sauce like a St. Louis or a Memphis. So you can really modify and grow, build your sauces under those conditions, and then add in your fresh herbs and spices. Coca-Cola works great. Tons of Coca-Cola reduced, or if you can get Coca-Cola syrup from like a restaurant where you can take it right out of the bag, which is usually a 3 to 4 to 1. You can pull it straight out. Root beer and Dr. Pepper reduced down, make really good barbecue sauces. Because think of all these brown spices.
Yeah.
Brown spices like allspice and clove really bring together deep flavors that you don't distinguish as their own. They become blended in. Nutmeg's probably not one of those to get in there. And yeah, so
So he had some thank yous on the
soy.
you get by the way, you get him talking about food and recipes and all of that, he'll keep going. Hey Dad. Sorry about the sound in the background. I think a video started back there.
So yeah, so I typically start my barbecue. I make them from scratch sometimes, but I'm going to put a lot of vinegar and sugar in. So many times I will take a commercial one, Sweet Baby Ray's or whatever's fallen off the shelf or discounted, and I will build it so that's about half of it, and I will build the rest out with vinegar and fruit juices and things, and build it up into what I want it to be. And that's a real easy way. Pineapple juice works for sweetness. Applesauce if you want it thick. Peach. We did a peach bourbon barbecue sauce. Had lots of pureed peaches, about a whole bottle of bourbon in it, cheap bourbon.
That sounds really good.
And then it did have traditional barbecue sauce. I think it had a touch of ginger in it. You can also start converting into Polynesian and Asian by starting to put in ginger, soy, using things like sriracha, pineapple juices, mangoes, papayas, tamarind. Yeah. So you start moving into tropical fruits for sour and somewhat sweetness, adding in sugar as needed, using soy and soy-based items for your for some of your deep flavors, and you're probably still going to need some vinegar in there on top of it, and you can build all kinds of unique different barbecue sauce. Oh, guava! Guava makes amazing barbecue sauces. It's usually more kind of sweet and sticky glaze.
Huh. Yeah.
Pork, smoke roasted pork with guava barbecue sauce. And you can buy frozen guavas and canned guavas to do that. Guava jam. Turn that into sauce. It's incredible.
So can you tell I'm not cooking here? He's the one who cooks in this house. But any other cooking related questions?
And the other thing that's going to happen is guarantee you get it just the way you want it and you didn't write it down and you're never going to get it the same. So you may want to write down pieces of it if you ever want to get it close.
Yeah. And write it down
But
as
if you
you go.
do it enough, you will understand those balances and how heavy you need to be on certain categories and you'll get it close enough where you just do it. So I tend to make these barbecue sauces without any recipe. I just kind of build them.
Yeah, so I think we covered a lot of different barbecue sauces in like 10 minutes or less. But so yeah, Evolution at Home says missed the vinegar sauces from North Carolina.
Yeah, Carolina is very vinegary, very wet. They do mops where you're mopping it on and you're wetting the meat. And they don't really serve it with sauce. St. Louis is sweet and sticky and tomatoey.
And good night from Zero to Homestead. Thanks for joining us tonight.
I find Kansas City is about the same, pretty similar. Memphis, as you move down the Mississippi,
I like Memphis.
It's also sweet and sticky and ketchupy, although they do their dry rubs, which are served with no sauce, and then they do their sweet sticky. But those tend to have a little spice on the back of them, which I like. That's how I tend to build it. And they also will frequently ask, do you want the regular or do you want the spicy? And so the spicy would be the regular where their batch adds a bunch of a vinegary-based hot sauce. And so it's a sweet and spicy and tomatoey. So yeah, that's and then you can really look at regional, how barbecue is prepared and how it's finished, and is it even sauced?
Do you have good barbecue books, barbecue sauce books?
I got the barbecue Bible from Steve Raishlin. I actually met him and did a weekend. He came and did a seminar for a bunch of chefs. It's right there. It says barbecue Bible.
I'm missing it.
Well,
oh, there it is.
It's in huge print.
Yeah, I know. It's to the right from where I was looking.
I have
barbecue
Bible. I have a Texas barbecue book. There are good regional barbecue and YouTube videos. There's some really good ones. Some pretty famous people. I did clips in my classes on like barbecues of the world.
Does what's his name from who's working in Tennessee but from South Carolina? The chef he has a whole series on that, or not. There's a section of
Sean Brock?
Yeah.
Yeah, Sean Brock he's in Nashville more right now than anything.
Yeah, but he's from one of the Carolinas.
Yeah, he has sections. Well, he did he did smokehouse, pit barbecue outside, and he's like, I don't like Carolina. He's in is it Charlotte? No, he's on the coast. He's in it
might be Charlotte where he's from.
He's like, I don't like the vinegary mustardy barbecue sauce, just as a personal thing. So he goes to out in the country, forget it's a fairly famous guy, and does where they do the old pit roast style.
Yeah.
He goes, this is barbecue. So I will tell you that the definition of barbecue is pretty broad, but it basically involves hardwood smoke.
Yeah.
If it isn't used, and charcoal briquettes are probably bending it a little too far. If it isn't, and whether it's chunks or it's a smoker or it's whole logs, I think you can debate that. But barbecue is not about the sauce. It's about it coming slow cooking over some form of hardwood, which develops some secondary or greater smokiness to it. And then what else you do to it, it's still barbecue.
Do you ever watch the Townsend? No, I think, Dan, do you guys watch the Townsends?
Pardon?
Do you watch the Townsends? We don't have TV anymore.
I'm watching you.
No, I'm asking if you watch the Townsends TV show.
No.
I think it's TV.
Nutmeg was very popular, I'd say Victorian time, because it was coming from the Caribbean.
Well, that would be before then.
And
the
maybe
17th century, the 1600s.
Yeah, and maybe also from India and places. Nutmeg is very expensive.
That is about the time where it's actually well into the time where a lot of the spice trade was really starting to take off, and bringing a lot of the spices from the Caribbean and from the Far East to Europe. And basically nutmeg was one that so fun when we went to Trinidad. When we 10 years ago, 2 years in a row, we went to Trinidad and Tobago, and I have a couple old videos taken on a really old, well, pre-digital camera that I put up about a year and a half ago on a couple videos on that trip. But when we were staying with the family that was making cocoa tea, they were just grabbing everything from
Well, we grab nutmeg on hikes. So nutmeg, this is in
nutmeg
February,
and mace and
very end of January, beginning
yeah,
of February. Nutmeg is falling off the trays.
yeah,
The mace wraps itself around. So you have the shell, then you have the mace, which is bright red. It's kind of like
wrap
fingers,
around it.
and then
Yeah,
the inner shell is the nutmeg.
yeah.
So nutmeg was kind of a specialty, so everybody was using it. Of course, English use it a lot, and mostly sweet, but it is a good savory item. It's a preservative for meats and such. And of course, Scandinavian cuisine uses it. A lot of European cuisine that took it on.
Yeah,
You
it
could
got
probably
very
do it. You
popular.
could do a nice nutmeg sauce, but you need to be careful with it because it gets overpowering.
Townsend is YouTube. Okay, okay. I've heard of it. I just haven't seen it. Um, yeah. And by the way, Seven Sprouts. Yeah, my dad's back there. He's been on a few of our videos too. He said hi at the very beginning here, but yeah. So I'm trying to see if we missed anything else in there. Yeah, you should definitely. We're on every week at 9 p.m. Sunday nights. So please feel free to join us. If you hit the bell below our video, by the way, it should give you a notification, but double check that once in a while because sometimes I think the bell gets unchecked somehow
Oh, did I
or
scare you? You were
randomly.
sleeping?
We have a puppy back here who's a very skittish puppy, and we do have some training videos that we're starting to do with her. Not a puppy, a 2-year-old dog. I always call her a puppy. Um, Sandra has to ask. I have some ghost peppers that she grew and other hot peppers. What does she do with them food wise? Sriracha, ferment them. What would you do with ghost peppers and other hot peppers? We have a few types of hot peppers.
Throw them away, man.
No,
Um,
you gotta probably tame
I've
them
had
down.
ghost pepper jack cheese, which is pretty good. Um, they are so hot that I find they don't have a lot of flavor, and I love very hot food, but I want flavor also. So I don't find a lot of use for something that hot. Now I do like Scotch bonnets, and
Yeah.
they're almost as hot. Things like that.
We're
You're going
going.
to use them very sparingly, so
Yeah.
you're going to use them, one to a
Half for one.
salsa. I would recommend things that help kill heat. Vinegar reduces heat to some degree, so highly acidic, and fruit and sweet help. So think
Yeah, that
of
would help
things
balance.
like
Yeah.
ground cherries, mangoes, papayas, pineapples, fruity things. You can make ceviche. Some of the ceviches have some really, really hot peppers from Peru, and they just float the pepper in the marinade. So with lime juice and different things. So you could puncture with a pin like one hole in it, and you could float it in. And if you cook it, it'd still come out, more. But you could float it in there and marinate like a fresh salsa, and then remove it before you cook it. I think it's more an anomaly about being how hot and that people are willing to eat it than being very culinarily useful. You can't use it. You're just going to use very, very small
Sparingly.
amount and a very large portion of sauce. Now you can do pepper sauces. Pepper sauces are typically malolactic ferments. So you can look that up. There's all kinds of kits. They're generally safe. The health department thinks the world's going to die, but if you follow the basic rules, you can do a malolactic ferment hot sauce, which would be Tabasco is your classic example. So you're going to use peppers, and you're either going to create vinegar or you're going to add vinegar, and you're going to add other things, herbs or spices to it, and then you're going to let it sit for a long time. Like Tabasco, I think sits a year or two. You can look up Tabasco is a wonderful website. It's a pretty good product. It's not my favorite product, but it's pretty good.
We'll answer 2 questions here
Yeah.
because we're running out of time here. But one,
Yeah, I did study as a chef. I went to culinary school for 2 years. I've been cooking almost 20 years professionally.
We actually met when he was pre-med, so he has a science background, and have a science background too. I'm working genetics. I'm a genetic counselor, so I talk to families about cancers, but as far as hereditary types. But you have a background culinary, and then you worked many years outside New York City and country clubs.
Started working in Memphis was my first
Yeah.
cooking experience. I lived in Italy for a year, so I've been pretty food focused my whole life. Always had a strong interest. So I've been watching food, but I've taken a professional interest. So yeah, hatch chilies are awesome. You can do a million things with hatch chilies. Way more usable than
Then ghost peppers.
ghost peppers. Now you could do a whole bunch of peppers, sweet and hot, and add one ghost pepper in with that melange
Yeah.
to create something. But
Gotta be careful.
yeah,
with that.
malolactic. So going back real quick, malolactic ferment pepper sauces. Pepper sauce, you put a drop on, 2-3 drops on your food. You put it on your rice, put it on your chicken. You season your soup with it, your stew.
Yeah.
That's what pepper sauce is. Salsa, you put a small spoonful or you dump it all over everything. So don't get confused. Americans are used to salsa more so than pepper sauce. If you go to Jamaica or you go to Trinidad,
Yeah.
pepper sauce will blow you away if you try and
Drop
eat
it.
it like salsa, like a bowl of soup.
Drop it.
But it's very good and can have lots of flavor. Typically, hot peppers, maybe a touch of onion or garlic, and cilantro is commonly in there, and it's wonderful. But
Yeah.
you use a small amount. So that's where ghost pepper would work decently.
Okay. And to answer your mom's question, which is how is Puddin'? Puddin' is the Great Dane that we got from your sister, who is very shy. We do have one video up so far, starting to train her, just basically just to come to us and relax with us. She's getting, I'd say, a little bit better, but she's really still like there's no way we get a collar on her yet. And we keep saying we got to
She's
get
touched
that
my
point.
hand a couple of times.
She
She's
comes-
still spooked at the littlest thing. You even sit and you move your hand like you might be getting close to her, and she jumps up and spooks and runs away.
Yeah. But
She
Helix,
does want to hang out with us.
she does hang out. She
At
follows
like
us.
5 feet away.
She follows us from room to room. She's laying on the floor right back here, about 4 or 5 feet back, with my dad in the room. She did bark at my parents when they arrived today, but it's fine. She sniffed them when they came in the door, but then she ran back and barked. And then, but she's getting there. I mean, we keep treating her, keep kind of just letting her know that we're full of good things for her because she's very treat oriented. She's definitely oriented more towards the hot dogs than this
Peanut butter treat.
peanut butter treat that I got
Yeah.
for her. She likes them, but she likes hot dogs
Hot
a lot
dogs
better.
are doing the trick.
Yeah, so
Little bits of hot dog.
we did get a clicker, so we're starting clicker training. I'll put a video up on that soon on how we use that training. I did record that, but have to edit it down. She's not quite as skittish about the cat anymore. She's starting to accept Helix. Helix has even gone up to her. Like if we go up to her, she will jump and back off. But Helix has gone up to her and bumped her in the nose. Now she was very surprised by that and jumped up real quick. But Helix has even looked like he was thinking about rubbing against her legs at one time. And so they'll stand near each other.
She's
So
been pretty nervous with 2 more people in the house today.
Today she's been nervous. But I think she may actually warm up to the cat faster than she warms up to us, which is fine. She probably needs someone to like gauge her trust off of to follow. And the cat, like you saw here, will just jump up in our lap. So I think that might actually bridge her to us a little bit if they become friends. So,
any other questions or stuff going on with other people?
Seven
Wrapping
Sprouts.
stuff up.
Yeah. Seven Sprouts is a RN. Cool. Cardiac trauma, or was an RN. I'm assuming you are probably retired now if you say was. I don't know how old
Going
you
back
are.
a little bit to truckage.
Yeah.
If for Justin, we'll be teaching some form of a seminar at the Homesteaders of America conference this fall.
Yeah, it's not a PTC course, but he is giving a lecture.
He's doing a lecture or talk on some topic for that.
For that matter, how many of you guys are going to the Homesteaders of America conference in October? We will be there, and we'd love to meet up and meet anybody who's there.
Yep.
Justin.
We're not doing anything official. We're just attending.
Yeah, we're attending. Justin is giving a talk.
Pratt's are doing a question and answer. Their kids are doing something.
Pratt Family Homestead's doing it.
I think the rabbit guy from Michigan's, who I always
Is he
forget.
back?
I heard he was coming back.
Doug and Stacy are going to be there from Off Grid with Doug and Stacy. Rose, and they're, I think, giving a talk. Rose from Wholesome Roots will be attending like us. Seven Sprouts is going. Awesome.
Good.
So Seven Sprouts, yeah, awesome. We'll have to
Who
meet
else?
up there.
We've got quite a few people from 1870s Homestead.
Yeah, that 1870s
Yes.
Homestead is going to be there.
Yes.
Um,
They're still doing some giveaways and stuff for it, by the way, Mandy. If
Yeah.
you're, I don't know if it's time or getting a ticket, but I think there's still a few discount or auction, raffle
was a
tickets running
giveaway.
around.
There was a giveaway going
recently.
on. Check out the Homesteaders America
Um,
web page because they just hit. I think maybe it
Joel
was on the.
Salatin, of course, is
Yeah.
kind of headlining again. So
But I think they hit like 1,000 subscribers to their Facebook page, and they were going to give away a pair of tickets to it. So you should check it out if you haven't already. I'm not sure if that's still going because we already have our tickets. I wasn't paying that close of attention to it. Teresa's going, so that's awesome. Yeah, and I think Rose is getting a get together
okay.
put together for like a lunch for the YouTube channel people.
Rose mentioned a big lunch meetup on Friday. Okay.
Yes, yes.
I guess we got to try. Oh wait,
We'll
it
be
starts
there.
on Friday, right?
It starts on Friday.
Okay, that's right. Of course. So
Exactly.
we're leaving on Thursday.
We're leaving on Thursday.
So we have to get So there is some people are camping, some people are hoteling, some people are obviously staying with friends and neighbors or whoever's in the area.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different stuff going on.
Yep. Looking into having t-shirts with your logo. Yeah, I gotta see about that. That would be good just for us to have. But if people are interested in it, I guess we can always order some. But I gotta figure out if I could do that in time.
You can get them done with. Yeah, you can. They're easy. You can get them done quick.
Yeah. I think
Vistaprint for one will do an almost
very quickly.
Any small amount run you want. The bigger the run, the better. But
yeah. So you get Vistaprint, but you also
there's
have
many others too. So I don't know if anybody
tons.
has preferred inexpensive T-shirters, but they're easy now. It used to be a big deal. You used to have to get 15 or 50, and
the company Holler Homestead used. They may have a minimum amount, but they had a really good quality, nice soft T-shirt that I like. So we'll have to look into that.
Yeah, we're gonna do a hotel too. We didn't want to be bogged down with. We don't have a trailer, and all the extra activities related to camping tend to be very
set up, breakdown.
Poor sleep and lots of extra work, and we didn't want that built into travel time and also just being able to hang out and do stuff with the conference and be awake instead of mosquito bitten and not sleep. No, we figure it's better to camp at a separate time.
Yeah.
Vistaprint, if you look at Vistaprint,
they have some pretty cheap ones.
They have a subset company that does hundreds and hundreds of clothes and other paraphernalia, promo paraphernalia. Most of the stuff has a no minimum or like a 5-item minimum. Some of them require a little larger. I do stuff for my business with it. And you can get all different qualities of stuff.
Yeah.
You can even get clothing like pullovers and weather gear that actually looks attractive and normal and not like corporate gear. Yeah, for my business, we got some outdoor windbreak, semi-waterproof coats, as we do farm markets, and of course they get crazy spring and fall. And we got some t-shirts. Oh, I got t-shirts on those with no minimum.
Yeah, we got t-shirts.
I think those were. I think that was like between $40 and $50 with the logo, and we did a run of one.
Yeah. So this is let's see if I could get in there. This is his business, his pasta business that he has started up in the last year. So we did. Yeah, we got one of this jacket.
You do banners for $40 or $50.
Yeah.
All of it on one. I have promotional bags.
And they don't pay us.
No, they don't pay. I've used them for years for business cards and other things, but I have found that they are very responsive and well priced for almost anything a small business or a hobby or a club needs for promo stuff. And while other places may be a little cheaper, I find that they're so easy to work with and responsive and quick and reliable that I'm happy to use them just because I know it's going to turn out. They're pretty good about fixing problems and if you don't have a logo that isn't working right, you do a lot of the input yourself. They'll double check it. Yeah. And if it doesn't seem like it's going to work, they usually, they'll let you know before it runs and you pay for it.
Sandra, yes, we do have Instagram. We also have a Facebook page and Facebook group. Not quite as active on Facebook, but I do post everything from Instagram. I share on those pages, and all my videos are shared there too. We do have Twitter, but I really don't check that one. But Instagram we're very active on, and YouTube we're very active on,
So
obviously.
part-time Permies.
On part-time Permies for any of that. I believe Instagram, it's all one word, no hyphen.
And I use West Michigan Pasta and Provisions, which is pasta related,
for his
although it
business.
ends up with some forage and farm market stuff on it.
Yeah.
And then I have MICRMUR McArmor with Instagram that is personal food related stuff, typically not pasta.
No.
I don't post that as heavily as I have at times because I'm
Doing a lot
I'm
of
doing
it.
2 or 3 or 4 posts or more for the pasta. But when I'm doing fun things with
Yeah.
food, a lot of times our forage foods or our recipes and things that show up in part-time Permies will end up on my Instagram first or later.
Yeah, we'll either do both, one or both of those places. We do a lot of food related pictures. I do put up a lot of nature related pictures, different flowers or things we have going on in the garden, and a whole variety of things. So, so I do have all the links for the part-time Permies related stuff down in the description below. You can always check that out. I am starting to put together what they call kits on a kit web page, which is if you're interested in some of the books we use as resources for foraging, I have a kit, which is a list of the books we use. That's in the link below. I just started a kit that lists some of our favorite gardening tools. That is in the link below. Those are going to be mainly Amazon, linked to Amazon through affiliate. So we do get a small amount back from those if you purchase anything through those links. However, you don't pay anything more for it. So if you're interested in some of the stuff we're using, you could always check out the kits. I do have that link in each of our videos. I just started setting that up. So really, just the last few videos on Forward have that link in the description, including the live show, I believe. I'll double check that. So that is another thing. If you're interested, I'll be building up some of those kits. I'll probably do some with some chicken raising tools. I have some, right now I have the foraging books, but I do have some gardening books. I'll put a kit together with that if anyone's interested in some of the resources we use.
You could put a kit together with my I have a lot of butchering and charcuterie related resources.
Yeah.
Mostly books that I use because anybody can get resources and tools to their liking. Most of them are good or very good, but I have a number of steadfast charcuterie and butchering books that I feel are trustworthy, and there's a lot of them that I'm not real excited that everything's going to work out well on them. So we could put those together if people are looking for do any fabrication work.
Yeah, so so keep checking back at that if there's anything you're interested in looking at. And we'll be building on that. So I just have the 2 kits so far, but we have a number of others that we could put together that we'll be doing over the next few weeks. So a lot of resources. I think it's fun sharing the resources. So if you have any suggestions or anything for these kits, just let me know and I can check those out and add them to there. But I'm just realizing it's already after 10:15. We've been on for over an hour. I guess, are there any last minute questions? I do want to thank all these new joiners today. It's been awesome chatting with everyone. Great discussions. But any last minute questions before we have to say goodnight? And I guess I should give that a second because there's always a little delay between the chat and our video. So I guess internet speeds aren't perfect. But yeah, Teresa's got to say good night. I've been tired all day. I have to go out and close up the chickens. They're still open, which is not a good thing. But we'll get them done soon. Yeah, I think we'll just go ahead and say goodnight. I don't see any other questions coming through. And we will be back. We're here every Sunday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So feel free to join us. And thank you guys all for joining us today. And especially to the new people, but everybody who's joined us every week as well. Oh, and I should mention, once a month we do a giveaway. It's a random day a month. So keep joining us. Once a month we might do a good another giveaway. It wasn't today, but we will one Sunday this month do a random giveaway just for people who come to our live show. So keep that in mind as you come back to our live shows. We'll be back next week at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Oh, yeah, go take care of your chicken, Sandra. I got to do the same. You guys have a good night. Take care.